Welcome to episode 8 of season 3 of the Book Blessed and Busy podcast. Um, it's been a journey. We we have kind of talked through in the last basically 2 months. Um, we've talked through this journey of like being in the trenches of the valley and like what our experiences was like, the fact that we felt desperate, uncertain, unsettled, um, and kind of what the journey has been like into finding God, finding refreshing, and landing at these places of humility, trust, and acceptance, right? So, kind of two very polar experiences that we've navigated in our time. And so, I think we want to start out with kind of where we landed last time. And like, do we hope to have mountaintop experiences? Sure. Yeah, we deserve them. But also, most of our time will be spent in this gray space, so to speak, of somewhere in this journey of like being between the valley and the mountaintop. I think we've learned how we need to navigate the valley, but what are we learning? What have we learned about how to maintain, sustain, steward this like in between well for the long run? What do we think that we have gained? If helpful, I can start.
Okay.
Both y'all like, yeah, I ain't ready. I think sort of in the way that Gaylisa highlighted last week, this requires some thinking time. So I don't have like, oh, this is exactly step by step what I'll do, but I have themes. And I think one of my themes is intentionality, right? Not allowing myself to be like swept up with the wind of life, with things happening again, that creates space for me to lose myself in the whirlwind of the responsibilities. I think intentionality with like how I spend my time with God, and maintaining that space of intimacy and closeness. Um, yeah, I think that's where I'm landing so far is intentionality with the tools that I have, um, and just creating space, more space for rhythm in my life. I mentioned either last week or the week before this aspect of like accountability to myself and what are the lessons that I can gain from this experience. And I think one of them is this sense of like finding rhythm, which I've been talking about for years. I think life now and having graduated is hopefully creating space for that to be a reality in my life and not just a hope or a dream of like one day I'll get there after school. I'm now after school. So implementing the things that I've been talking about for a long time. Yeah. Dornick don't want to go before you.
I can stare down. You know that meme? The Spider-Man them. Oh my gosh. Do you have any thoughts?
I just feel all over the place. I think you should go, and then I'll definitely I have to by the end of yours.
You want some centering questions? She's like, no, just go.
I mean, sure.
Centering questions?
Well, yeah. What you have? What do you have?
Well, I don't really know this really good, so I can just throw it there and see how you respond. But what are some of the things that have been like I think in past episodes we talked about like our toolbox and the things that we already like have within us, right?
Yeah.
So as you think about the idea of like how you want to like sustain, what are some of the things you already have that you want to be intentional about continuing to use in this like in the moments when it kind of gets gray and it kind of is in that in between?
Yeah. Okay, I got it. I think, well, for me, two things come to mind. I know I always have prayer. I think before maybe I just wasn't using it enough. All right, God, I understand. But I know, like, I know I always have prayer, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. I think I expected my prayer to be like, okay, I have to take out this whole chunk of time and make sure I dedicate, like, yes, that's important. I definitely have spent more time doing that, but also prayer for me has also looked like from walking from one building to the next. It's just saying like,
Yeah.
Yo,
yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Like, this is really difficult right now. And so maybe it's more so like more time seeking God in more spaces and in times and talking to God more. The next thing I would say is my community. So knowing that when I am at the end of myself, it's knowing that the resources I have are community, family, and people. Like, I have people. I tend to go into this space of like, if it's not me doing it, then nobody else needs to be, or nobody else could. And so I'm now at a point where I'm like, okay, if I trust you and you haven't given me a reason not to, then I can now allow myself to get into this space and tell people my needs and not wait until like they come to me and like have to say like, what's wrong with you? But I can actually now reach out and like be able to tell people. So,
no, what's wrong with you?
In a respectful way.
I know, it's just like how you said it. I was like,
in a respectful way.
But yeah,
I think those are.
You could speak. You're finding ways to like speak sooner.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like that answered your question.
Yeah.
I was like, what your shoulders doing?
It's whatever feels like honest and authentic to you. I think, Danielle, I like that perspective of like rhythm. And Dorinique, I think for me as well, it's being intentional about you talked about relationships and community. I think that's also a thing for me. But also relationship and like the way that I speak to myself. So let me break these up. To Danielle, about your point with rhythm, I think for me, being able to allow myself to go with the rhythm instead of trying to control it is a place of where my relationship with the rhythm needs to shift and change, and it needs to sustain. I need to find a way, or I need to be intentional about reminding myself of going with the rhythms of how things are just evolving in life. And how like there's certain things I can't, or outcomes I just can't control. There's certain things that that are just gonna happen in life, especially like whether it might be like with school, for example, and thinking about the future. I think what gets me caught up and anxious with the future is that I'm trying to control what the rhythm looks like now to prevent something bad from happening in the future. And that doesn't work for me. And what it does is it puts me backwards into the places of the valley and getting overwhelmed and getting frustrated and wanting to isolate because I'm trying to control elements of how I want the future to look like. And so I think being less controlling and more trusting of God and of the people that I choose to have in my life allows for me to experience more life. It allows me to experience more freedom. It allows me to experience more peace in the different rhythms. I think when I think about rhythm, I think like I need you to, in my head, I'm like, I need you to go to the beat of the drum that I'm telling you to go at rather than like at a drum that either that God is beating or that life is just evolving into in this specific state or this specific season or whatever it might be. And so I'm learning to relinquish control of that and being okay with not knowing. I struggle a lot with uncertainty, and there's certain things that I can know and there's certain things I just cannot know, or not, when I say cannot know, or I just won't know now, or just it isn't meant for me to know.
You don't need to know.
Sometimes I just don't need to know.
Bro.
And that's okay. You know. And so I'm learning to just be okay with that. And to the point now, Jenny, that you brought up that kind of trigger for me is like more so relationship with myself. Another thing that kind of puts me back into those spaces of disconnection, isolation, overwhelm, hopelessness is like when I am having a hyper critical self-talk experience where I am unpleased with myself or I am critical and be like, oh, you should have done A, B, C, and D, or every little thing is just going through this like sieve. And I think for me, it's a matter of finding more intentional spaces of positive self-talk And as people speak life into my life as well, and as people affirm, and as people validate, as people bring those living streams for me, accept it as good. I don't have to question it. I don't have to critique it. I don't have to be so distant from it. It's just good. And I don't have to be fearful that it won't last for a long period of time. Those moments of being on the mountaintop, I think for me, it's like, I'm scared of when this is going to turn and I'm no longer going to be on the mountaintop and happy. And I'm like, that's not how God ever promised for life to be. That's not how life is realistically.
Yeah, that's not life.
And I think for me, it's like being able to just accept that and accept the natural rhythm of like how life goes. Some days are good, some days are bad.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I was like,
go ahead.
This is like a small thing that I told myself when I think there's just like bad things or bad days. And it's the idea of like, this is a bad day, not like a bad life.
Yes.
And then it's even like, sometimes I have to break it down even smaller. Because I'm like, when good and bad things happen in my day, I'm like, this is a bad moment, not like a bad day. Just breaking things down into that and just separating the things from like recognizing like this is life. Like you could have good and bad news in the same day and still know like, one, God still got your back. And then two, like you got to keep going.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we do have this ability to like totalize experiences, and that's not accurate. And I think oftentimes when we have gone through a valley, I see this all the time. When we have gone through a valley, we have the tendency to like cling so tightly to the mountaintop experiences for fear of experiencing anything bad again. But in our clinging out of a sense of fear, we are still not experiencing the fullness of the mountaintop.
Right.
Because we're living in fear.
Yeah.
Right. So we are missing the thing that we've been asking God for. And then when we experience a low point again, it just feels like we've been in a continuous low point because we weren't able to acknowledge the fact that like we did get a sense of reprieve.
Yeah.
But in the reprieve, I just lived so anxiety prone that I didn't get to experience the fullness of it. To what you're saying as well, Dernique, I think there's somebody's story on Instagram recently that talked about the fact that we don't often pay attention to our abilities to reset, right? So if like 9 to 10 a.m. went bad, we're like, oh, I'm just over this day already.
Yeah.
Right. And we have constant opportunities, whether that be in our days, weeks, or seasons, to reset, to decide that I'm not going to allow these things to define the fullness of whatever the time span is.
Yes.
But I still, through prayer, right, through intentionality, through using our tools, I have the ability to reset, even if that's like, the morning's been rough, I'm gonna go sit in my car for 30 minutes and talk to Jesus.
Yeah.
And when I get out this car, things have got to shift, right? There's some kind of determination where I think we just, not like we mean to do this, but I think the weight of life sometimes causes us to be so passive and reactive instead of proactive.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love the idea of not allowing the thing to define you. I think that is something that I battled as I was trying to navigate all of the ups and downs of graduating and trying to figure out like life moving forward and all of that, and recognizing like, no, these moments and these bad moments are not defining moments. They are a part of my story, yes, but they are not the entirety of who I am. And when I could step outside of that and recognize like, who am I, like outside of all these bad moments, there's so much more to me, to the people around me. Like I don't look at people through that rose, I guess I'd say the black colored lens, because it was like you looking at things through like a horrible, like everybody's horrible, everybody's struggling. Like that's not the case. I think when I was able to shift outside of that, I was able to just celebrate my friends more. Like just, I think talk about perspective shifting too. So like everything shifts when you're able to step outside of that and realize like, not a bad life, not a bad day, just bad moments.
Exactly.
I like that. Not a bad life.
I was first introduced as we're thinking of what I was talking to one of my colleagues, one of my coworkers, and he was just reflecting on we were reflecting on something, and he personalized it in terms of like, even like one, you're talking about it like through an experience of like, that was a bad moment in an experience. And I conceptualized, and I had that conversation with him of like, in those moments in time when I am not myself or feeling connected like to myself, things of that nature, those are moments and times of like who I am as a person. This is not the trajectory of like who I am. Like me having those moments of like irritability or like frustration or disconnect, things of that nature, like these are moments in the trajectory of like who Gay Lisa is. These are, it's not the fullness. And so I think it has been, I think being able to see more of like who I am and more of what this journey can look like has just, man, I can't put words to it. It's continued to like help me to fall in love with myself and fall in love or be more like hopeful in different experiences of like what life can look like or what God can look like, things of that nature. So for me, that's how it's caused me to respond. That perspective has affected the way that I respond to these various to these other aspects of my life.
And talking about some of how we shifted and like how we'll be sustaining this in between gray area. I mentioned a level of intentionality, but I think also, and I've talked about this throughout the season, is maintaining a sense of humility versus pride. That again gives you the opportunity to say like, I am needy, right? Like, what are things that I need? And being honest with myself in this way. And I think it was like, I don't know, episode 3 or 4. I think 3, where we talked about like songs and things that have been dear to us. And one that is consistently in my mind is Hold Us Together by Taryn Wells and Her. And I'm gonna read I'm not gonna sing like Gaylee would sing it, but I'm gonna read the lyrics and just, yeah. It says, I will trust in you and know that you are with me forever. I'll confide in you because you're the only answer that matters. Even in the darkness, you will be my light. Even when I'm hopeless, you will be my guide. I will not be shaken. I will not be moved. Even in the chaos, I know that you're good. You're the keeper, protector. It is you that holds us together. When everything else fails us, it is you that holds us together. And I think that's like all the words of the song. And I think that that is essentially what we're describing, is finding parts of ourselves in the midst of this, and not totalizing ourselves, but also finding different parts of God in our experience and allowing that to be the thing that like shifts our perspective. For me, it is, I remember there was I don't remember what had happened. I think it was around the time of like a car accident that I had. And I was driving a few days after and this song just like popped up. And I remember I was like, God, this has got to be you through the song ministering to me, because exactly what I need in this moment. But it was a perspective shift again, of a reminder of like, things when in the chaos feel really small. And I think we're able to expand our vision of our day, our season, who we are, from that perspective of who God is in the midst of the things. That makes it all more hopeful and all more doable and like a little less dark and dreary, you know?
Yes.
We were just swimming through mud, and we now have some kind of like sight. So
I love that. That song is really in its totality, it's just a beautiful one. And the idea of when you can feel so undone and feel so all over the place, God is still holding us in the midst of it. Something I'm grateful for.
Yeah. The visual that I get with that song, and is in some ways how I felt in this season, is like a vase that is like shattered. So it is you that holds us together, right? When the pieces of my life feel like they are not working, when they feel foreign to me, when they feel like they're not working together for the purpose that I want them to work together for. One of my things in this season of life has been like he is the one who holds me together. He is the one that keeps me, and the one who's the pillar of my life, right? And so like when the parts of my life feel very disjointed and like they don't fit, that you are still able to make me a functioning vase in this season, even though I don't feel like it. So yeah, it really has shifted a ton. I think overall in this in between, I think like a narrative that I'm hearing amongst the three of us is staying close to the stream that Christ provides and allowing ourselves to be constantly nourished and refreshed in that stream, and keeping us in the seasons that we want to and as a people that we want to remain, and not like slipping back into that
old habits.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Which to some degree, like, it is old habits and old ways, but I'm also hesitant to say that because it's not our fault. Does that make sense? Like, the Valley experience was not like our doing. We can control our responses to things, but it wasn't our doing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my hesitancy with the language.
Okay, I agree. When I say always, I think more so of like our old ways of responding, our old ways of thinking, not slipping back into that, and being able to come now into a place where we're thinking and processing differently. I don't know. That's that more makes sense. In old ways. Yeah, because the Valley wasn't my fault. I'll tell you that. Anyway, it wasn't on me. It wasn't on me.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And I'm even thinking about what it takes for that to even happen. Because those old ways or those responses somewhat happen because they felt natural. They felt safe. They felt like what we would have needed in that moment or whatever it might be. It happened for a reason. And so I don't know. I'm just even like wrestling in my mind of like, okay, well, I think that's very true. Like, we want to be like mindful of like what those things look like, but I think it also takes a healing journey in shifting the things that were not functional. They felt functional in that time, and gave us something that we needed in that time because there were healthy and unhealthy ways or that we responded in the midst of the Valley. And so I'm just thinking about like how there's like multiple layers of like healing that's taking place or that may need to take place to help a transformation to occur in the midst of the Valley, so that it's not transferred now into other areas of our life or to other people or experiences in our lives, if that all makes sense.
So like taking other Valley experiences into other valleys. I don't know.
It could.
I don't know.
I mean, I think part of that though is what I've mentioned before, like being reflective and wanting to make sure that I learned what I needed to learn. But I think also, like, yes, our values were being safe, being protected, those kinds of things. But I think this experience, for as long as it was, for me feeling at least like a year, is I have begun to relearn and in some ways we redefine what it means to feel safe. Right? Like that, those things were true and were our natural dispositions to find safety. But I think even now, like, would we say that we're not safe?
Oh, that wasn't a head shake. That was like a no.
Right. Would we say that we're not safe?
No.
I feel like I put a gun to your head.
Yeah, and it's like, say no.
And I say no.
Okay.
I'm tracking with you. Keep talking.
Generally, I'm not sure that we would say that where we find ourselves currently is not safe. I think that we have redefined what safety looks. All right.
I wasn't fully.
I understand.
Yeah.
I
need
think
you to keep talking.
Yes, I think that we needed to redefine what safety looks like, and so from this redefined place and this more secured place with God, we are able to lean differently if another valley were to come now.
Yeah. I pick up what you put down.
I would even add a more secure place with God, ourselves, and others.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think I could be cool with God, but I also was struggling with myself.
Yeah.
And then without struggling with myself, I was also struggling with others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think out of finding safety in those three spaces,
that's the trifecta.
No, that is the trifecta.
Pow.
Yeah. You've been watching too much superhero movies.
I mean, in was it? I think it was season 1. I think it was the end of season 1 that we talked about like being lifelong learners.
Yes.
And I think this is like the epitome again of like we were learning then and we are still learning now, and not just like book learning, but learning ourselves, learning God, learning how to interact with each other. Like, we are always consistently evolving.
Yes.
And like just finding ways to sharpen ourselves and to be more healthy.
Yes. Yeah. We are shifting from a PhD student to an almost PhD student to a almost done PhD student. We are shifting and evolving for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even, you're right. Even in because we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, like even in the process of recording this, like we have both graduated.
Yes, and so graduated.
Like,
I'm starting my PhD. You're done your PhD.
Yeah, I'm now just living life.
And you
working. Living life.
You have 1 more year, and you're gonna make it.
Yeah, you have 3 years. You're gonna make it.
That's why I don't want to talk about it. Oh. I think just taking in that I actually doing this is also anyway. Yeah. We'll catch you up next season.
I mean, no, quite literally. Seriously. I was thinking earlier today about the fact that, like, even as we transition, we are talking we're talking from the perspective of being at the end of a thing. Yeah. But we're also all three very much at the beginning of a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds in the next few weeks and months.
Yes. Yeah. Well, guys, it's been a journey. It's been fun.
It's been real.
Yes. You got to see us start a new thing. You get to see us, and we've talked to you about different aspects of our journeys, and now being in our in-between places between the mountaintop and, our valleys. But we just want to say thank you. This has been honestly a pleasure to be able to just speak to you guys, share our hearts and our struggles, and openly talk about it as we struggle on camera with you. It has been fun. It's been great. And we just want to say a huge thank you to you guys for tuning in and listening, to our producer person.
Wow.
Erin. I say person because she's done so many other things. Like she is our big brains, I should say, behind our
the technological things.
All of our technology. Yes. So you want to say a huge thank you to Erin, and then we also want to say a thank you to Antoine for our new logo.
Yeah.
If you like our branding, let us know. Let him know.
Support the thing.
Yes. And then again, we want to say thank you to Antonio for our music. The music that you hear, the little intro and outro, the little Caribbean vibes.
Your shoulder's doing a lot today.
We want to thank him for that as well. And we hope that you continue to join us as we navigate life and we navigate the mountain and valley experiences. And remember that you are not defined by those experiences. That is not who you are.
That's it.
You are God's.
You are who God
okay.
Yes.
Mic drop. Yeah. Mic drop right there.
All right, guys. It's been a blast. We will see you next season for season 4.
Wow.
All right. Bye.
Bye.